So hello everyone. Here I have Yuriko joining with us today, all the way from UC Berkeley. So yeah, Yuriko, please introduce yourself with your name, what school you're going to, the year, and what your major, minor, and pre-professional tracks are, if applicable.
Yeah. So hello, my name is Yuriko Akeyama, and this fall I will be an incoming second year at UC Berkeley. Right now I'm planning on studying political science, but I'm also interested in economics as well. So I'm still deciding on my major.
Okay, nice, nice. So yeah, why did you choose to major in political science in the first place?
So when I was applying to colleges, I wanted to study international relations. Because I actually lived in Japan for a while, and then I can speak a couple of languages, and because of just those upbringings, I was just really interested in just international politics. But at UC Berkeley, international relations is part of political science, so that's just kind of where I ended up.
Ah, I see. That's cool. And then why did you choose to go to UC Berkeley?
This is also a little different for me, I feel like, but because I lived in Japan for
Mhm.
a little bit, I also considered going back to Japan for college because it's a lot cheaper there. So because of financial reasons, my options for college were going to a UC school
Mhm.
or going to school in Japan. And so personally, I wanted to stay here in California. So it worked out for me. But that was the main reason why I chose UC Berkeley.
Oh, nice, nice. No, that's cool. And then you mentioned about not only living in Japan, but also applying to colleges in Japan.
Mhm.
So, like, was UC Berkeley your first choice, or was like you said that you mentioned you wanted to stay in California, correct?
Yeah.
So, like, if you happen to like not get into, or no, like, how about this? Between like all the UC schools and then the schools in Japan, which one would you have gone
Mhm.
to?
Definitely UC Berkeley.
Okay, nice. Oh yeah, that's great. That's great. And then let me see. And then you said you lived in Japan for a couple of years. How long was that?
Mhm. So actually, I grew up there for the earlier parts of my childhood. I moved to the US in third grade.
Oh wow.
So before that, I was just living there. So Japanese was my first language. And so coming to the US, I had to learn English and everything. So that was hard for a bit, but here I am now, and I like California better than Japan.
Nice, nice. That's good. That's good. So then now I just want to talk about like just like the college application process because I know you applied to both not only UCs but as well as colleges in Japan. So yeah, just
Mhm.
like I guess first of all, tell me how the college application process was for just like the US in general, like applying to all these UC states. I mean UC
Mhm.
schools.
Um, so because for me personally, I really wanted to go to UC because I wanted to stay not just in California, but just in the US. I got started with my UC applications pretty early, I feel like. So in the summer, I started kind of forming ideas about my essays. And then I pretty much finished most of the application when school started, I feel like. Just because I
Mhm.
wanted to make sure everything was good about it, and then up till after that point, I think I asked around a lot of teachers or my advisors for advice and just help editing my whole application.
Mhm.
um but this is also because my whole college application process was very long, because it started with UCs, but then schools in Japan, I was applying for them in February.
Oh.
So it was just a really long process. So I had this whole schedule planned out with what I'm gonna work on in this part of the year, so that I could
Mhm.
just kind of get to all the applications, because I did apply to UCs, I did apply to schools in Japan, but I also did apply to private colleges here, even
Mhm.
though they weren't necessarily very realistic for me to attend. I still applied to them. So that was just kind of my application process for UC.
I see. What do you think was like the hardest and the easiest parts of like the US college's application process?
Um, um, this is what I really enjoyed about it, I feel like,
Hmm.
is like a lot of the schools, this isn't UC's, but a lot of the schools ask that like why this school question like in their essays, right?
Hmm.
So I really appreciated that because it really like allowed me to like get to know the school better and like kind of have a vision of like what I would do like at that school if I were to attend. So I felt like that was very like good for applicants to just go through so they know like what they're putting themselves into because like when you're in high school you don't really you hear about like stories about college but you don't really know what it would actually mean for you once you get to that point. So I feel like actually going and physically like researching all those colleges, I think the hardest part would be for me was just time management
Hmm.
because I was applying to so many colleges just throughout. It's pretty easy to, like kind of procrastinate, especially with schools that you may not feel as if you have like a good chance of like getting into, or like you don't like if you don't have a strong desire to like kind of attend a college because you feel like it's not very like plausible, or because you feel like it's like maybe your safety school, you can start to get a little lazy about things.
Mm.
And then like that added to like your normal schoolwork, I feel like time management is a concern for a lot of people.
Yeah, I feel you. It was like that for me too. And then you said that was the application process in Japan, was it like due on February or did it start on February?
So there was I applied to a couple of schools in Japan and they all had like really different application processes.
Hmm.
And the earliest one, it was due in like November.
Oh.
So I worked on that like after I finished like most of my UC applications. And
Hmm.
then the rest were due in like February or March.
Mm.
So I like kind of worked on them after I finished applying to the private colleges here.
Oh, nice. And then what sorts of information did you use to like figure out like how to apply for college in both Japan and in the US?
Um, for the US, um, I think this is something that a lot of schools do, but like you would get like college admission officers like come visit your school.
Hmm.
So like I would go to a lot of those like info sessions just to see if like that college was like somewhere that I wanted to apply to or I was interested in applying. And then if I felt that like it wasn't necessarily something that I was too interested in, like I would just kind of cross it off my college list so that I wouldn't like, be applying to like a bunch of colleges that I don't even like want to go to. So that was kind of like part of the research that I did to like narrow down my college list. And then for like the schools in Japan, my parents actually helped me with like finding like programs to apply to because they pushed me to go to school in Japan because they thought it would be a better experience for me. um, but I think like because we live in a time where we can easily access the internet,
Hmm.
you could easily just kind of figure out like which schools would be like maybe good for your interests, your majors. So I just did a lot of like researching like in my junior year of high school so that
Hmm.
like by the end of my senior year I could just, go to those college um visits at my high school
Hmm.
and like really narrow down that list.
Nice, nice. Yeah. It's good to get like it's definitely good to like start early and what you're saying about how you like were able to do most of the college application process before school started during the summer. I thought that was pretty dope. And then you said that your parents wanted you to go to school in Japan. Like, were they okay with the idea that you were going to UC Berkeley, or were you able to like persuade them somehow?
So my like conditions for going to college, it wasn't like super strict, but like this is like their ideal, my parents, their ideal was that like I would go to a good UC, whatever that would mean. and then or like a school in Japan, because as I've mentioned earlier, like just tuition and like living costs, everything is so much cheaper in Japan. So like they were like the ones who really wanted me to go to school in Japan. And um, like for me, like I keep saying this, but I personally wanted to stay here, but also like I wasn't super opposed to going to Japan just because like it would help me like, like develop my Japanese better, because it doesn't my language proficiency in like Japanese isn't as like good as like if I were to like, grow up in Japan like fully.
Mhm.
So I thought it would be like a good opportunity also if I considered going back to school for Japan. Um, but yeah, I had like those like two main choices, I feel like.
Mhm.
So they weren't necessarily opposed when I got into UC Berkeley. They were pretty happy because like it was within like the considerations like for like my plans.
Mhm. Yeah, that's great. And UC Berkeley is like an amazing school, and everyone knows that. So yeah, that's great that you're able to stay here in California. And then, so yeah, just like wondering what, like throughout like the whole college application process, if you could like go back in time and change anything, like what would you have done differently?
Hmm. I feel like I applied to a lot of schools, um, especially private universities. And, I got into some, I didn't get into some. But either way, like there wasn't a high chance of me like attending those schools, even if I did get admitted. And I feel like just like, that constant like having to like, write the application and the essay and like do research for all those individual schools added to a lot of stress like in my senior year. So I feel like I should have done more research about like if I really wanted to go to those colleges, and then like really focus my energy in those applications, because I feel like just the sheer number of colleges that I applied to just overwhelmed me.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense. There's like a lot of options on what college you want to go
Yeah,
to, and like every college have their own like supplemental essays that you have to write, and like
right.
all that work to go into that is just like just so much.
Right.
So, and then like in high school, what extracurriculars did you like participate in? Just, like
Yeah,
anything that like you're interested in that you're passionate about.
so I did cheerleading all 4 years of my high school, and I was captain for the last 2 years. So that like took up a lot of my time because the team was pretty small, and um the coach also had like a lot on her hands. So that would mean that like as captain, like my last 2 years of my high school, I also had like a lot of work to do for cheer, not just like leading the practices, but I would also be, choreographing a lot of the performances, or I would be like, getting in contact with a lot of like outside organizations that like maybe it wasn't like necessarily within like my role, but it was something like I also had to do. But that was really something I really enjoyed. And then in my junior and senior year, we also like added like a cheer program for special education students. So that was like another like new challenge that me and my co-captain took on, because it was just like something new that we were working on. So, and there wasn't really like a precedent for it. So I had to like figure out what was best for like everyone when we were working around that. And then like academic clubs wise, I was part of the French Honor Society,
Mm.
because I took French, I enjoyed it, and then but I joined in my junior year because you had to like be like invited into the club,
Ah.
so you couldn't just like join. And then I was also doing MUM, Model United Nations, for a little bit,
Mm.
but if I were to really invest in that club, it would take a lot of time because you would be going to conferences, but you would also be prepping for the conferences, and you have to like practice your speeches and everything. So I
Mm.
couldn't do it as much as I wanted to, just because cheer took up a lot of my time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a lot of extracurriculars. And then like once you got into college, were you able to like I guess not expand. Were you able to, I guess, continue any like extracurriculars that you were passionate about?
Yeah, actually, I'm continuing like a lot of the stuff that I really enjoyed. For example, like with cheer, I'm not exactly like cheerleading like on the team,
Mm.
but I really like dancing. But I've never really done dancing, so I thought like, college would be like a good time to kind of transition. So I joined a dance club um, in the second half of my freshman year in college, and that meant like, like we didn't really get to perform because
Oh yeah.
everyone went home. And I'm not quite sure how that's gonna work out in the coming years, but that's like something that I started in college. And then in terms of MUN, I didn't get to do as much as I wanted in high school. So I joined Berkeley Model United Nations, which hosts an MUN conference for high school students.
Mm.
And so that's like pretty much keeping me busy, like even now, like throughout the summer as well. And I'm
I,
really happy I joined because I kind of like get to continue doing that even though I didn't get to work on it as much in my high school years.
cool, cool. So yeah, hopefully once like coronavirus dies down and all of us can get back to school, hopefully you can keep doing like what you want to do and all these
Right.
extracurriculars. So I guess like the last question I have for you is like, what advice would you give to like general high school students right now applying for colleges?
Um, I think when you're in high school, you feel like everything you do is like super important. And like some people would have like really high standards for like literally everything that they do. And like that is a good mentality to have, but also like what I've realized like going to college, even though it was like barely a year, is that like a lot of it doesn't matter as much as like you like stress yourself out it to be. So like whether it be like, like AP tests or your grades or like just about like I would say like just enjoy what you do. If you put time into like whatever you enjoy, like I think that will just like show in your application. And so you don't necessarily have to like stress yourself out to be like perfect in literally everything. Because obviously like college like admissions, like they would like love to see that, but I think they would also like really value like your passions and like your interests over like you trying to like stress over like getting perfections and everything. So
Mm.
like rather than like trying to achieve for like a perfect SAT score, I think it would be a lot more worthwhile doing to like just invest in like maybe a club or an interest that like you're really passionate about.
Oh, yeah, that's some real good advice. Yeah, I know like for me in college, I mean, me in high school, I put a lot of pressure on myself to like make sure I get like those high SAT scores, like ACT
Right.
scores. And then I wasn't able to like really enjoy like being able to like really enjoy having time to play golf. Like I was
Hmm.
be able to like in the golf team and play during the matches, but wasn't able to like practice as much as I wanted to. So yeah, that's some really great advice. So yeah, thanks for joining with us, Yuriko. And yeah, sounds good.